The sun was already low over Atlanta when Marcus Hill switched off the radio and merged onto the freeway. He'd just wrapped a 10-hour shift, not at a precinct or courtroom like most assumed, but at the city's Civilian Review Board, a department tasked with investigating police misconduct. Irony had a way of following him, like a shadow that didn't know when to quit. Marcus was used to long days. He'd spent 10 years as a patrol officer before transferring to internal affairs, and another 5 trying to reform a system from the inside out. The badge he wore now didn't carry the same shine as it once did, but it carried something heavier: accountability. He loosened his tie as he exited toward East Point. The streets were quiet, streetlights blinking to life in the humid dusk. Then, out of nowhere, blue and red lights flashed in his rearview mirror. Marcus blinked, frowned, and checked his speedometer. 42 and a 45. He pulled over anyway. A police cruiser rolled up behind him. The officer stepped out, young, tall, and too confident. His vest bulged slightly under his shirt, his boots polished sharp. He approached with a kind of swagger that said he'd already decided what kind of man he was dealing with. Marcus rolled down his window halfway. "Evening, officer." The cop stopped at the window, his flashlight immediately shining into Marcus's face. "License and registration." Marcus kept his tone calm. "Sure thing." He moved slowly, reaching for his wallet. The flashlight didn't move. It stayed on his face. "You know why I stopped you?" the officer asked. Marcus handed over his license. "I'm not sure. Was I speeding?" The cop smirked. "You rolled through that stop sign back there." Marcus's brow furrowed. "Stop sign." The officer nodded, writing something on his notepad, like it was already decided. "Near the gas station. You didn't come to a full stop." Marcus exhaled quietly. He'd passed no gas station. "Sir," he said evenly, "there isn't a stop sign for 2 miles on this road." The cop tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing. "So now you're telling me how the roads work?" Marcus didn't answer. He'd been on the other side of this too many times to argue. "Where you headed tonight?" "Home." "You live around here?" Marcus gave a small nod. "South Atlanta." The officer chuckled under his breath. "A lot of people say that when they don't want to tell me where they actually live." That was the first crack, not in Marcus's patience, but in the officer's professionalism. It wasn't about a stop sign. It was a test. The flashlight beam drifted lower, to Marcus's lap, then to passenger seat, where his work ID badge sat clipped to a folder. The officer's eyes flicked toward it. "What's that?" "Work badge," Marcus said simply. "For what?" Marcus's tone stayed level. "City Oversight Department." The officer leaned closer, squinting to the window. "You trying to say you're a cop?" Marcus's jaw flexed. "No, I'm saying I work with law enforcement accountability." The officer froze for half a second, then recovered with a scoff. "So you investigate cops?" "That's part of it." "Well, lucky me," the officer said, stepping back with sarcasm sharp enough to cut glass. "Guess I better make sure this stop is textbook then, huh?" Marcus said nothing. The kid couldn't have been older than 28. That mix of adrenaline and arrogance was familiar. Marcus had once had it too, but arrogance with a badge was dangerous. The officer walked back to his cruiser, and Marcus caught the faint chatter of his radio. "Back up." He sighed and rubbed his temple. Routine traffic stops were never routine. A few minutes later, another squad car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, 1 male, 1 female. The young cop briefed them quickly. Marcus could see their body language shift from relaxed to tense, as if his presence itself was a threat. He rolled down the window as the first officer returned. "Step out of the vehicle, sir." Marcus turned his head slowly. "May I ask why?" "Just step out." He unbuckled his seatbelt, calm but alert, every movement deliberate. He knew how fast something like this could go sideways. He stepped onto the pavement. The humid air clung to his shirt. Streetlights buzzed overhead. The officer gestured toward the hood of Marcus's car. "Hands where I can see them." Marcus obeyed. "Anything illegal in the car?" "No." "Any weapons?" Marcus hesitated, just for a breath. "Yes." Service pistol in the glove box. That was all it took. The atmosphere tightened like a wire. The female officer's hand moved toward her sidearm. The male officer tensed. Marcus spoke quickly, voice clear. "I'm licensed." Law enforcement identification in the same compartment. The young cop who'd stopped him smirked. "So now you're law enforcement?" Marcus didn't look at him. Check the badge before you escalate something you'll regret. The officer opened the passenger door, flashlight darting around before landing on Marcus's folder. He lifted the wallet-sized badge between two fingers. It gleamed faintly under the light, gold and blue enamel with the Atlanta seal. He read the engraving aloud, but the confidence in his voice cracked halfway through. Marcus Hill, Internal Affairs Division. Silence. The two backup officers exchanged looks. The young one swallowed, his face suddenly pale beneath the cruiser lights. Marcus turned his head slightly, meeting his eyes. "You ran my plates before you approached," he said quietly. "So you already knew who I was." The officer opened his mouth, closed it, then said nothing. Marcus stepped closer, but his tone never rose. "Tell me something, officer. Was this about a stop sign, or about what I look like driving this car at night?" The question hung in the air like a storm cloud that refused to move. The female officer looked down. The other male shifted uncomfortably. Only the young cop, Officer Blake, according to his tag, tried to maintain eye contact, but it faltered fast. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. He just reached out, calmly took his badge back, and slipped it into his pocket. "This isn't about me," he said quietly. "It's about what happens next." He opened his car door, paused, and looked at the young officer one last time. "You want to be good at this job? Start by assuming the best, not the worst. Every person you stop could teach you something, if you just listen." Blake didn't reply. Marcus sat back in his car, closed the door, and started the engine. The lights behind him stayed flashing for a moment, then dimmed, fading into the night. He drove the rest of the way home in silence, his badge glinting faintly under the dash lights. The next morning, the sun poured through the blinds of Marcus's small office. Coffee steamed beside a stack of reports. The name Officer Blake appeared on his desk twice before the morning was over. A citizen complaint, filed by Marcus himself. Not out of vengeance, but duty. He wrote the report carefully, fact by fact, no emotion, no exaggeration. Just truth, because accountability didn't need anger. It just needed consistency. When he was done, he leaned back in his chair and looked at the framed words on his wall, a quote from his late father, a retired sergeant. "A badge doesn't make you powerful. It makes you responsible for how you use it." Marcus smiled faintly. He picked up his pen and signed the report. Later that week, Officer Blake was called into review. Training was ordered. Counseling, too. Maybe, just maybe, the young cop would learn what Marcus had learned long ago. That power means nothing without perspective. The lesson: that night, Marcus drove the same road home again. Same streetlights. Same route. Only this time, there were no flashing lights behind him. He glanced at his badge lying on the passenger seat. It wasn't a weapon or a threat. It was a reminder. The law isn't about who speaks the loudest. It's about who stands calm when silence demands courage. Thank you for taking the time to watch this story. Every view, every comment, every share. It truly means more than words can say. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe so we can keep bringing powerful, meaningful stories like this to life. Your support really means a lot to us. If this story made you think, share it, because respect isn't given by a badge. It's proven by behavior.